We decided not to build the Titanic as an actual, floatable ship. So then the question is, what do we build? How do we break it down? What do we really need?
When Titanic hit theaters in 1997, it wasn't just a movie. It became a cultural phenomenon. James Cameron's masterpiece swept audiences into the doomed voyage with breathtaking visuals and unforgettable performances. But even in a film this iconic, not everything went as planned. Hidden within the polished scenes are surprising bloopers, one of which fans still can't stop talking about. What makes it so fascinating is that it wasn't fixed in editing. It made it into the final cut.
Sort of see the sea, see the horizon, have a kind of a natural view. And then we'd use, obviously, digital composites for other shots, shoot people in front of blue screen, green screen.
At first glance, you might miss it, but once you notice, you'll never see this legendary scene the same way again. Join us in this video as we reveal these bloopers. Number 20. The wire that wasn't supposed to be seen. When the Titanic reaches its most heart-stopping moment, the ship splitting in half, everything on screen feels raw and chaotic. Passengers are scrambling, bodies are tumbling into the freezing water, and the sheer panic is overwhelming. But if you look closely at one particular shot, the magic of movie-making slips through the cracks. In the middle of the chaos, one poor soul is shown being violently pulled downward, supposedly by the force of the ship breaking apart. On the surface, it looks terrifying and real, but when you pause at just the right frame, something unexpected jumps out. The actor isn't being dragged by the ship at all. He's attached to a set of wires. Yes, actual stunt rigging wires are clearly visible, dangling against the dark night backdrop. They were there for safety, of course, to control the fall and keep the stunt from turning deadly. But the wires were never supposed to make it to the final cut. Somehow, during the quick editing and intense action, those frames slipped past the editors. Most viewers miss it completely during their first watch because the scene is so fast and full of noise. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. Suddenly, instead of a desperate passenger meeting his fate, you realize it's just a stunt being carefully managed off-camera. It's one of those blink and you'll miss it bloopers that completely changes how you view the scene. And yet, this isn't the only kind of Titanic blooper. So, what could be the next blooper on the list? Keep watching to find out. Number 19. The hymn that didn't belong. One of the quieter, more haunting moments in Titanic shows passengers gathered in the ship's church for Sunday service. The voices rise together in unison, singing Eternal Father, Strong to Save, also known as the Navy Hymn. The choice feels perfect for the film. It's solemn, emotional, and hauntingly tied to the ocean. Rose even softly sings the words, "For those in peril on the sea," which hits especially hard given what's coming. But here's the issue. That hymn was never actually sung on the Titanic. Survivors who later wrote about their experience specifically mentioned the Sunday service on board, and they recalled that Eternal Father, Strong to Save was absent. According to the Washington Post, the hymn was sung later that day, but not in the church service. Instead, it was performed in a smaller gathering among second-class passengers. And the historical inaccuracy doesn't stop there. The particular version used in the movie wasn't even written until 1937, 25 years after the Titanic sank. That adaptation was composed specifically for Navy aviators, long after the events of 1912. So while the hymn works beautifully on screen, creating a moment of eerie foreshadowing, it's another case of the filmmakers prioritizing emotional impact over strict historical accuracy. The result is one of the most moving scenes in the movie, but also one of its sneakiest anachronisms. But what happens when the danger looks completely fake for one scene? Let's find out. Number 18. The rubber axe that ruined the tension. A few moments in Titanic carry as much raw tension as the scene where Jack is handcuffed to a pipe while icy water rises around him. Rose bursts in, desperate to save him, grabs an axe, and prepares to swing for his life. The scene is supposed to make you hold your breath, the water climbing higher, Jack pleading for her to hit the chain and not his arm. On the surface, It's pure suspense, but if you slow things down and look closely, the illusion slips in a big way. The first problem is Rose's aim. The way she's standing and the angle of her swing make it painfully obvious that, in reality, she would have missed the chain completely. Or worse, she would have slammed the blade straight into Jack's arm. For a second, the scene doesn't feel like a daring rescue at all. It feels like a dangerous mistake waiting to happen. But then comes the real blooper. As Rose swings the axe down, the blade actually bends on impact. You can clearly see it flop like it's made of rubber. And that's exactly what it was. A rubber prop used for safety during filming. Normally, these kinds of props are shot in ways that make them look solid and convincing. Here, though, the bend is so obvious that it completely breaks the moment. Instead of a heavy, deadly axe saving Jack's life, it looks like Rose is hacking at the chain with a toy straight out of a Halloween costume. Once you notice it, the tension melts away, and the scene suddenly feels awkward and clumsy. What was supposed to be one of the most dramatic rescues in the movie turns into one of the most noticeable bloopers, leaving fans wondering how such a clear mistake made it past the final cut. But could Jack and Rose really escape in freezing reality? Stay tuned to find out. Number 17. The impossible escape. In Titanic, Jack and Rose face one of their most desperate moments when they find themselves trapped behind a locked metal gate as icy water rushes in. It's a nerve-wracking sequence. The water is rising fast, the ship is sinking, and they have to find a way out. Against the odds, they manage to open the gate and escape. On screen, it feels heroic, but in reality, the likelihood of pulling this off was almost zero. Some people compare it to a Houdini stunt. And sure, Houdini could unlock himself underwater with practice, training, and nerves of steel. But Jack and Rose, they weren't escape artists. They were two exhausted people in near-freezing water, fumbling for a key in a life-or-death situation. In those temperatures, your fingers would stiffen within moments. Fine motor skills vanish quickly in icy water, and handling something as delicate as a small key becomes nearly impossible. The scene works for the drama, but from a realistic standpoint, it's not feasible. The time it would take to locate the key, fit it into the lock, and actually open the gate would almost certainly have been long enough for hypothermia or panic to set in. It's one of those moments where Hollywood magic trumps reality, because in real life, that locked gate would have been the end of the story. Number 16. The windows that broke twice. The flooding of the Titanic is one of the film's most unforgettable sequences. Water is pouring in from every direction, smashing through windows, ripping doors off their frames, and swallowing entire rooms in seconds. The chaos feels so real that most people never think to question what they're seeing. But buried in all the action is a small blooper that sharp-eyed fans can't unsee once they spot it. In one of the most intense shots, the camera captures water violently crashing through 4 windows. It's quick, it's dramatic, and it perfectly shows how unstoppable the flooding had become. But if you pay close attention, those same 4 windows actually get smashed twice. In the first sequence, the water bursts through the first, second, and third windows before finally blasting through the last one. But in another shot, the order is different. The water slams through the first, second, and fourth windows before finally hitting the third. At first glance, it's easy to miss because the scenes cut so fast. But once you notice, the inconsistency is impossible to ignore. The shattering patterns and order just don't line up. And the reason is surprisingly simple. Director James Cameron filmed the flooding multiple times, and instead of choosing just one version, the editors stitched together shots from different takes. The end result is undeniably thrilling on screen, but it also leaves behind this little continuity hiccup. The water itself ends up exposing the blooper, showing us that even in one of the most expensive films ever made, mistakes still slip through the cracks when the pressure is on. Keep watching to find out more bloopers you might have missed from the Titanic. Number 15. Kate Winslet's real brush with hypothermia. Behind the camera, Titanic wasn't just tough on the characters, it was brutal on the actors too. Kate Winslet, who played Rose, nearly paid the price for realism. During the water scenes, she wore nothing more than a thin slip dress. Unlike many of her co-stars, Winslet wasn't allowed to wear a wetsuit underneath. That decision left her exposed to freezing water for hours at a time. The result? She came dangerously close to hypothermia, and even admitted that she nearly quit the film because of the grueling conditions. Director James Cameron had to persuade her to stay on, reminding her of the once-in-a-lifetime role she was playing. While the movie shows Rose battling against icy waters with unshakable strength, the reality for Winslet was just as harsh. A paper-thin dress provided no real protection, and the cold was relentless. This next blooper will leave you wondering just how the editor missed it. Number 14. The glass that magically repaired itself. Amid the chaos of the Titanic flooding, Rose is seen sprinting through the corridors, desperately trying to stay alive. At one point, she spots a fire emergency box on the wall, holding an axe behind a sheet of glass. With no time to waste, she smashes the glass and grabs the axe, determined to save Jack from his chains. It's a moment that's supposed to show her bravery and quick thinking, but if you watch closely, something strange sneaks in. Just moments after Rose breaks the glass, the camera cuts to another angle, and suddenly, a big piece of that same glass is back, perfectly intact, sitting in the frame like it had never been shattered in the first place. There's no sound of more glass breaking, no shot of the box being repaired, and no explanation whatsoever. 1 second it's gone, the next second it's magically reappearing. This isn't just a tiny detail, it's one of those continuity bloopers that completely breaks the logic of the scene. From one glass repairing itself to a scene that never would have happened in reality. What's next on the list? Let's find out. Number 13. The forbidden boiler room kiss. One of the most romantic moments in Titanic happens when Jack and Rose sneak into the ship's boiler room, surrounded by roaring furnaces, sparks, and shadows. They share a passionate kiss in a scene that feels dangerous, raw, and unforgettable. But here's the problem. In real life, this never could have happened. The boiler room was one of the most dangerous places on the Titanic. With massive coal-fired furnaces blazing at extreme heat, moving machinery, and strict safety rules, no passengers would have been allowed anywhere near it. Legally and practically, it was off limits. So while the scene plays like a fiery symbol of forbidden love, the reality is far less glamorous. Instead of romance, being in that room without authorization would have meant serious trouble, or even death. In short, Jack and Rose's iconic kiss in the boiler room wasn't just unlikely, it was impossible. Number 12. The case of the disappearing suspenders. Some bloopers in Titanic are huge and dramatic, while others are so small you'd never catch them unless you're really paying attention. One of the funniest examples happens during the nail-biting scene where Rose is about to free Jack from the handcuffs with the axe. The water is rising, the tension is unbearable, and all eyes are on whether Rose will hit the chain or Jack's arm. But if you glance away from the action for just a second and focus on Jack's outfit, there's a blink and you'll miss it wardrobe slip. In one shot, Jack is clearly wearing his suspenders over his shirt, just as he had been throughout the scene. But the moment Rose actually swings the axe and smashes the cuff, the suspenders mysteriously vanish. No straps, no trace of them at all. Then, as soon as the camera cuts back, the suspenders magically reappear like nothing ever happened. The explanation is simple, but hilarious. That particular stunt shot wasn't done by Leonardo DiCaprio himself. It was performed by a stunt double. And somewhere between setting up the shot and rolling the cameras, someone forgot to put Jack's suspenders back on. What was supposed to be a seamless life-or-death rescue suddenly turns into an unintentional fashion blooper. Most people miss it on first viewing because the scene is so tense. But once you notice Jack's suspenders disappearing and reappearing, it's impossible not to laugh in the middle of one of the movie's most dramatic moments. With suspenders vanishing and reappearing, the next blooper on the list asks a vital question. Stay tuned to find out what it is. Number 11. The locked car conundrum. The steamy automobile scene between Jack and Rose is one of the most famous moments in Titanic. Fogged-up windows, a hand sliding down the glass. It's pure movie magic. But if you stop and think about it, there's a big question. How did they even get inside that car? Yes, there were real automobiles stored on the Titanic, including the famous 1912 Renault. But these cars weren't just sitting around unlocked. They were carefully secured for transport. Owners wouldn't want anyone sneaking in and tampering with their prized possessions on the journey. In reality, Jack and Rose would have had no way to simply hop inside for their iconic moment. Unless Jack secretly had some carjacking skills, which we doubt, the whole thing doesn't hold up. As romantic as the scene is, in truth, their passionate encounter would have needed a private cabin, not a locked automobile on the cargo deck. How careful should one be while shooting a movie? Keep watching to find out. Number 10. The Cameraman in the Glass. When Jack first wanders into the upper-class part of the Titanic, it's meant to feel like a turning point. The scene shifts into his perspective, and we're seeing the elegance of Rose's world through his eyes. He walks through the polished doors, soaking in the grandeur, and for a moment, the audience is invited to share his awe. But if you slow the scene down and look closely at those elegant glass doors, something very out of place shows up. Right there in the reflection is the unmistakable outline of a cameraman. You can clearly make out the shape and even part of the equipment he's holding. It only lasts for a split second, but once you spot it, the illusion is gone. Instead of seeing the Titanic through Jack's eyes, you're suddenly pulled behind the curtain of filmmaking, staring at the crew who were never meant to be part of the story. This kind of mistake isn't unusual in movies with shiny surfaces, especially when filmmakers shoot on real sets rather than relying on CGI. Still, for a film as polished, expensive, and carefully crafted as Titanic, it's surprising that such an obvious reflection made it through the editing process. Number 9. The mirrored footage trick. At the very beginning of Titanic, we see what looks like an authentic old piece of film. Passengers waving from the deck as the great ship prepares to leave port. Among them is a girl in a hat, waving to the people below. It feels real, almost like you're watching history itself. But here's the catch. When the Titanic leaves in the movie a little later, that very same shot reappears. Just flip. The girl in the hat and the people around her are all in the exact same positions, only mirrored. It's a clever editing shortcut, but once you notice it, the illusion of authenticity kind of cracks. Instead of rare vintage footage, it's really just the same scene recycled and reversed. A neat trick for storytelling, sure, but also a sneaky little blooper hiding in plain sight. While some mistakes were hard to spot, others come from something even stranger: storylines, comments, and details that don't actually line up with history. Let's find out what this next blooper is. Number 8. Rose outsmarts history. One of the things that makes Rose stand out in Titanic is her sharp wit and intelligence. She doesn't just go along with the world of first-class society. She challenges it. And one of her cleverest remarks comes during the famous first-class dining room scene. Surrounded by her controlling mother, her smug fiancé Cal, and the ship's elite, Rose throws out a cutting line that still gets a laugh today. When J. Bruce Ismay proudly explains that the Titanic's name was chosen to represent size and strength, Rose interrupts with a sly jab. She casually asks if he's familiar with Sigmund Freud, suggesting that his ideas about men being obsessed with size might be of special interest. The remark lands like a dagger. Some at the table chuckle, her mother is mortified, and Ismay himself, completely missing the insult, actually asks if Dr. Freud is on board. It's a brilliant little moment that shows Rose's quick thinking and modern edge. But here's the catch. Historically, that line shouldn't exist. In 1912, Freud hadn't yet published his theories linking masculinity and size. Those ideas only became public years after the Titanic sank, which means Rose was referencing a concept that technically didn't exist yet. The line works perfectly for the movie, adding an intellectual flair to Rose and highlighting her boldness. But in terms of history, it's a clear anachronism, a clever piece of 20th century psychology slipped into the dialogue of a 1912 world. It's funny, it's iconic, but it's also a textbook example of how Titanic sometimes traded accuracy for a good line. If Rose bent history, what about the Straus couple's truth? Keep watching to find out more. Number 7. The Straus couple's final moments. One of the most emotional shots in Titanic shows elderly Isidore and Ida Straus lying together in their cabin bed, holding each other as water pours in under the closed door. It's a haunting image of love in the face of death. But here's the problem. It isn't true. The Straus's cabin was on sea deck, far away from where the movie places them. And since Isidore's body was recovered after the sinking, for that scene to be accurate, his remains would have had to drift through a closed cabin door and somehow float up multiple decks, a physical impossibility. In reality, the couple refused to be separated when the ship was going down. They were last seen sitting together on the boat deck in deck chairs, waiting for the end. Ida's body was never found, but eyewitnesses confirmed that the two remained side by side until the very last moment. The movie version may have been more dramatic on screen, but the truth of their devotion was even more powerful and far more tragic. Keep watching to find out more blooper you missed from the Titanic. Number 6. The mole that couldn't make up its mind. Rose may have looked flawless in every single frame of Titanic, but one small detail on her face wasn't nearly as consistent. Her famous beauty mark, sometimes called a mole, actually moves around throughout the movie. If you pay close attention during close-up shots, you'll see it clearly. In some scenes, it's on her right cheek, adding to her elegance, but in others, it mysteriously jumps to the left side of her face. This isn't a case of makeup slipping or mistakes in costume design. Instead, it comes down to a common editing trick. During post-production, editors sometimes flip the film horizontally to make a scene flow better or to match camera angles. It's quick, simple, and often invisible to the average viewer. But flipping an image means anything on one side of an actor's face suddenly appears on the opposite side, including Rose's beauty mark. For most people, this slip flies under the radar, but once you catch it, it's impossible not to notice. In a film that was crafted with such attention to detail, seeing Rose's mole move back and forth between her cheeks feels surprisingly clumsy. It's a tiny blooper, but one that sticks out precisely because everything else about her character was designed to be picture perfect. Number 5. The smiling child extra. Sometimes, a single background actor can unintentionally ruin the tone of a powerful scene, and Titanic wasn't immune. In the film, third-class passengers desperately try to escape to the upper decks as the ship sinks. Chaos erupts as families cry, scream, and push against the locked gates. It's one of the most gut-wrenching moments. But if you look closely, there's one child in the crowd who isn't panicked at all. In fact, he's smiling, almost cheerful, while everyone around him is breaking down in terror. The sight completely undercuts the intensity of the moment. After all, any real child, even if they didn't fully understand the danger, would have been distressed just by watching the adults scream and sob. It's a small detail, but once you notice that smiling extra, it sticks out like a sore thumb. In a sea of terror, he looks like he's having the time of his life, turning a tragic moment into an awkward blooper. Now, what could be the next blooper on the list that will blow your mind? Let's find out. Number 4. The mysterious hand in the door. The sketching scene, "Draw me like one of your French girls," is one of the most unforgettable moments in Titanic. It's meant to feel private, intimate, and charged with emotion. Rose, nervous but determined, slips off her robe and prepares to let Jack capture her on paper. But before she even reaches that famous moment, there's a tiny mistake hiding in plain sight. As Rose enters the room, it looks like she's making a dramatic entrance, opening the door herself with purpose. But if you slow it down, you'll notice something that throws the illusion off. Rose never actually touches the door. Instead, a hand, clearly visible for just a split second, pulls the door open from the inside. It's not hers. It's most likely a crew member who was supposed to stay hidden, accidentally caught in one of the movie's most iconic setups. It's such a small slip that most people never see it, but once you do, it changes the vibe of the scene. Instead of Rose walking in on her own, it almost looks like she's being gently nudged into place, guided into her big moment. It's a funny reminder that even the most iconic movie moments are still filmed on a set, surrounded by crew members doing their jobs. And sometimes, even perfection needs a little off-camera help. It seems there have been a lot of disappearing in the Titanic that many fans never noticed. What comes next? Number 3. The disappearing life jacket. As Jack and Rose cling to each other while the Titanic makes its final plunge, the camera pans to a man desperately holding on to the ship's flagpole. It's a striking image, one of the last glimpses of life before the ocean swallows everything. But if you watch closely, there's a continuity mistake that's hard to miss. The man's life jacket doesn't stay put. In one shot, it's clearly strapped to his body as he hangs on for dear life. But in the very next cut, it completely disappears, only to reappear again moments later. The frantic editing makes the switch easy to overlook the first time around, but once you catch it, it's impossible to ignore. It's a simple wardrobe error, but in such a dramatic and emotional moment, the vanishing life jacket pulls you right out of the scene, reminding you that even the most intense sequences can have clumsy little mistakes hiding in plain sight. Number 2. The flashlights from the future. Amid the chaos of the sinking ship, there's a quick scene that most people don't think twice about. Officers are rushing through dark corridors, searching for Jack and Rose as the panic grows. To light their way, they pull out flashlights. Simple enough, right? But here's the problem. Those flashlights are a blooper hiding in plain sight. The beams they shine are bright, sharp, and white, almost like the powerful LED or halogen lights we're used to today. It looks perfectly cinematic, but it's totally wrong for 1912. At the time, handheld torches did exist, but they looked and behaved very differently. The bulbs would have been weak by modern standards, giving off a soft yellow or orange glow thanks to carbon filament or early incandescent technology. Instead of laser-like beams slicing through the darkness, the officers should have been carrying something that looked more like a dim lantern. So why did the filmmakers use them? The answer is simple: visibility. Those white beams made it easier for the audience to see the actors and the drama unfolding in those dark, flooded hallways. It was a creative choice for the sake of cinema, but historically, it sticks out like a sore thumb. For history buffs, spotting a sleek, modern-looking flashlight on the Titanic is like catching someone whipping out a smartphone to take a selfie in 1912. It just doesn't belong. And while this blooper is a neat mix of movie magic and historical inaccuracy, some of the film's other slip-ups go even further. So far, they make you question the logic of the entire story. If flashlights broke history, what is the truth behind Jack's drawing? Keep watching to find out. Number 1. Jack's shifting sketch. The drawing scene between Jack and Rose is one of the most famous moments in movie history. Jack carefully studies Rose, charcoal in hand, while the camera captures every nervous breath and glance. But if you pay attention to his sketchpad, there's a glaring continuity error hiding in plain sight. When Jack first begins, he boldly drags a dark line straight down the middle of the paper, almost like he's marking his place. But in the very next shot, the line has mysteriously changed. It's much lighter, shifted more to the right, and Jack is suddenly sketching her face instead. It's as if the entire drawing reset itself in between shots. This kind of mistake is common in films with close-ups of artwork, since multiple takes are needed to capture every angle. But in such an intimate scene, the inconsistency stands out. The bold stroke that should have anchored the sketch just vanishes, turning Jack's masterpiece in progress into a bit of a movie blooper. So now you know these bloopers were present in the movie, Will you be rewatching the Titanic? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video shown on your screen to catch up on your favorite celebrity stories. See you there.